Unanimously.
I understand the next call is a split call. I'll ring the bell at 4 minutes. Chris Hipkins.
Very insightful call from Jamie Lee Ross. It's not often that we get national members standing up in the House and delivering such honest appraisals of their own government's performance, as we just saw from Jamie Lee Ross, condemning his own government for not picking up the principle behind this piece of legislation and making it a national bill. That was effectively what he just did. He only took 30 seconds to do it, and it was a very accurate appraisal of the government's performance on this issue. I do. That's right. They need the opposition to do it. I do take great pleasure in rising to speak in favour of this particular piece of legislation in the name of my colleague Trevor Mallard. I know that he has put in a huge amount of work into this piece of legislation, and I only hope, Mr Speaker, that in about 25 years' time, after I have also been in Parliament for an equivalent length of time as Mr Mallard, I too may have a bill such as the Hutt City Graffiti Removal Bill passed through the House in my name. But perhaps on a more serious note, I do want to acknowledge the Hutt City Council, although I have a problem with that in one respect. I grew up in Lower Hutt. I don't know where this place Hutt City is, because actually if you go to the Geographical Board of New Zealand, they don't know where the Hutt City is either. There is Lower Hutt and there is Upper Hutt, and in the not too distant past, some empire building mayor in Lower Hutt decided that he was going to rename Lower Hutt as Hutt City. There is actually no such place as Hutt City, and I can say that because I was born there and I grew up there. I don't know where this place Hutt City actually is. It's Lower Hutt. It's always been Lower Hutt, and it's still Lower Hutt. So it's just a little bit of my pet peeve for the day, which I just wanted to get off my chest. Now that I have done that, I want to turn a little bit more to the substance of the bill. And the graffiti has been a problem in the Hutt Valley, not just in Lower Hutt, but in Upper Hutt as well. And this piece of legislation will allow the Lower Hutt Council, or the Hutt City Council as they prefer to call themselves, to remove graffiti from private property in certain circumstances. And I just want to put into context what we're talking about here. We're not necessarily talking about the garage doors, because in the case of a garage door on someone's house, it's not that difficult for the council to go and knock on their door and say, hey, you've got graffiti there, can we remove it? That's generally not where the problem begins. The problem begins in buildings that aren't currently occupied, and so I'll give an example of an old empty factory that might back onto the riverbank, for example. And in that case, it can take a long time to actually figure out who owns it, to get hold of the owner, if there's no tenant in it at the moment, and to say, actually, do you mind if we remove the graffiti? And of course, in 99% of the cases, they say, well, we don't really care, do whatever you like. But at the moment, that's taking the council a long time to track down who those owners are and get their permission. What this says is, well, just go ahead and do it. And I think that's quite a reasonable thing for the council to be doing, because there are buildings in the Hutt Valley where it could take some time to track down the owners. I know of a building in Upper Hutt, which won't be covered by this legislation, where the owner is offshore, based offshore. The building is no longer occupied, and it is vandalised on a regular basis, and the owner actually just doesn't care. The owner doesn't live in New Zealand, doesn't have to drive past this particular property every day, and just doesn't care. Now, if that property was in Lower Hutt, under this piece of legislation, the council would be able to do something about that. So I think that it's a welcome initiative. Graffiti is something that just simply drives people mad. It is pointless. It is destructive. It is the destruction of people's private properties. I really feel for some of the residents in my neighbourhood, actually in Trentham, who I see out there painting their fences or water blasting their fences on a fairly regular basis. It must be infuriating for them. Yeah, it must be infuriating for them to have to get out there and repaint their fences after these little tow rags basically get out there and yeah, that's right, and vandalise their fences. But actually, it's not just. I think where there is another area of problem, which I don't think this bill necessarily addresses, which we're seeing increasingly through the Hutt Valley, is etching. Because etching of glass windows costs a heck of a lot more for local businesses than painting. Painting can be removed with a bit of turps. Etching is very, very expensive, and that's something that I think we need to find some solutions to as well, because I know it's costing our local businesses a lot
Sorry
of
to interrupt
money.
the honourable member. I call David Clendon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And I'm pleased to take a brief call to